We are a couple of months away from the beginning of the preliminary round of the 2020 presidential election. It was March of 2015 when Senator Cruz, as all of us know him by, announced that he was mounting a bid for the presidency. So, statistically, or at least if we're going off of that timeline, we're within months of candidates announcing. This week it was reported that Sanders and Warren, or rather Sanders and Harris, were both going to be traveling to Iowa to campaign for people and to, you know, see the sights because we all know that Iowa is a very popular tourist destination. That all the no one who's running for president never goes there before an election cycle. But when I was sitting back and thinking about all of the candidates and all the different angles that this stuff goes by, I realized this election cycle is everyone's to lose because if you look at the Democrats, um, they suffer from weak leadership. That's why the House Speaker Pelosi is so unpopular. And even if they get into power during these midterms that are coming up in a few weeks, what are they going to do? Are they going to pass Medicare for all? Are they going to pass free college? Um, and the wars, anything? And the conflict in Yemen, where we've killed over 10,000 civilians and spread the worst case of cholera in modern history, or at least been complicit in doing that? Nothing. Um, and the obvious reasons because they're bought out, but that presents the problem of the Democratic Party. If it's in power, looks bad. If it's out of power, looks bad. Um, so having 2 years of crap from a theoretical Democratic Congress is going to make the candidates have a much harder time standing, especially when you then factor in who we have. Now, obviously, people such as myself, self-proclaimed progressive, would favor the Sanders and Warren wing of the party. So if those two run, and let's say they were to win, you go, oh yes, great day in America, yeah, and I would prefer those two over any of the other people. Um, but then what? Because now you have a Congress that's made up of a bunch of corrupt, and this is ultimately the problem. I can sit here and talk about the issues with the oligarchy, but unless it's addressed, nothing is going to matter. Um, we have over 500 members of Congress, and only 10 of them don't take money from corporations, meaning that you can bet most of their votes are going to be in favor of things for corporations. But that's already the plight of the progressives and the plight of the Democratic Party. Now, how you're thinking to yourself, how does Trump look? How the Republicans do bad or look bad here? Well, you have to understand that when you go back to Trump's campaign, and people actually not forgetting every single thing in the course of 4 years, what were the themes? We had a guy who was saying, I'm not going to cut Social Security in any of these programs. They're trying to cut that. We have a person who is basically everything that Trump flips on, that a lot of his supporters will say, hey, you're going to, he's evolved his view. He realized this didn't work, so now he's going to switch over and blah, 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 blah. Is going to be seen as flip flopping, like Romney, by people who support him. And eventually, what this is going to end up doing is you're going to have slight segments, and we're already starting to kind of see it. Women are getting away from some other groups, are also leaving, but it's also going to spell out trouble for any, let's say, new coming Republican. Like you get ones that are now done, and they have new members that come in the next 2 years. Which among them is going to believe Trump after watching him flip flop before? So if he gets reelected, he's going to go into that next, that second term with a Congress that has seen through the smoke and mirrors. And even if it's controlled by Republicans by that point, which I don't think it will, at least not the House, Senate possibly, but um, if they control it, why would they believe him if they've seen him flip flop on everything else? So I see everyone as having a lot to lose during this cycle, um, and I just think that the best alternative that people, if anyone wants to have genuine control of Congress or just of politics in the U.S., they have to flush out Congress. They have to put in people that they like, and the only ones doing that right now are the oligarchs and the these corporations. And then a lot of times when you have these Democratic candidates running against, let's say, a Republican, what you'll do is you'll have people who will say, okay, they're not bought out, but my guy is, so I'm going to invent a story that this person is. So, for example, in this cycle, let's say if it were Sanders versus Trump or Warren versus Trump, they're going to start talking about these two taking PAC money and how now they're corrupt for whatever reason. And then, obviously there will be the whole throwing out the term socialist over and over and over again. Then if it's Warren, we're going to hear about uh, being Indian and how somehow that's worth discussing more than actual issues. It's a wide plethora of nonsense they can drum up to try and distract from the real issues. And a lot of people are going to sit there and be caught up and go, Trump's so funny. When in reality, the joke is on you, because the entire purpose behind looking at those two and saying, I'm going to, find fault, not in their positions, but in what I think is true of them or some story I'm creating or my advisors told me to repeat, is to drown out real issues. You can get bipartisan support, maybe not in Congress, but definitely, you know, definitely in the population. Given that we actually have polls that show a majority of people believe money is a corrupting factor in politics, but you can get loads of people to hop onto the message of, let's get rid of Citizens United, let's strike down, this system of elections not being publicly financed. A lot of people would find that message resonating with them, but it's going to be drowned out by the standard nonsense of, oh, that person is insert term here. It's just what effectively this means is that if I went around and I called, let's say, Trump out of his name, and I just said, oh, Trump is this because this, he's this, some random term like fascist, for example. Every time I talk about him, I just call him a fascist. It's designed to make the person afraid. This cycle is going to be the new Red Scare, where everyone is who can make people the most afraid into voting for them. It's not going to be about issues. It's not going to be about policies. It's not going to be about actually trying to have your heart on stating a message that keeps with a willingness to see it through, which is something that Sanders has done, Trump advocated for, Obama advocated for, whatever. This is the typical campaigning style. And it's going to turn into a sideshow. And when people start giggling about elections, it tends to spell out a lack of paying attention to substance. And we all get screwed in that way. And that's why this election cycle is everyone's to lose, because there can be a lot of interesting ideas thrown out that, a small portion of people will keep interested in and say, hey, I want to see more of that and hear more of what that person has to say about this topic. But if it's drowned out by nonsense about if someone's a socialist and if someone is Indian and if someone is a fascist and if someone is with her or any of that other trash, it's going to end up just like last time, except with a lot more character assassination.